guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm very thankful to say that the lighting situation has been updated in my workspace, so I do hope that you enjoy that in this video and in all of the videos to come. First of all, I'd like to make a few shout outs to Blue Leather Poetry for writing the poem that inspired this painting, and to Shantara Bird for collaborating with me and giving me the opportunity to paint her album cover for her new single, which you can now find on Spotify. I would highly recommend checking out Blue Leather Poetry on Instagram. She's a photographer and a poet, and her works are so beautiful. I'll leave her IG handle here so that your feed may be blessed with her content. And if you have a few minutes to check out Flower Love by Shantara Bird on Spotify, definitely head over there. The song is very chill and has some modern 70s flower child vibes that I really love. Okay, let's move on to this painting. Since you saw the title, you know that we'll be talking about Moonglow by Daniel Smith, which is arguably one of the most unique watercolor paints available. But more on that later. I decided to use an 8x8 block of fluid cold pressed watercolor paper. I did consider an 8x10, but decided that the square would be better for the aesthetic I was going for. Oh, and I didn't mention, feel free to join me no matter where you are on your watercolor journey. Even if you're a very beginner, this quote-unquote tutorial is very simple and can be modified to whatever paints, paper, or brushes you have. Things like moons are great for practicing washes and creating texture, so be sure to experiment and not to worry because there are over 200 moons in our solar system and yours can be unique too. Did I just Google that, you ask? Yes, I did. Alright, so as you guys saw, I used a candle lid to trace a circle, but you can use anything you have handy, a cup, a jar, a coaster, or what have you. I made a pretty dark line on that, but then erased it until I almost couldn't see it, and I used it as a guide as I painted. Now, I decided to paint the moon first, but you could certainly go ahead and paint the background first if you wish. In that case, you could use masking fluid if you wanted crisp lines between the moon and the background. I decided not to use fluid, but I did have to be pretty careful. I was using a Da Vinci Casaneo size 2 for the majority of this painting, but probably should have switched to a smaller brush to wet the paper that was close to the edge of the circle. On the left of my ceramic palette here is my Moonglow, and on the right is some Jane's Gray, which is a mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine. The first thing I did was paint a part of my circle with water. And as you can see, I'm now dropping some Moonglow onto my blank moon. These drops will become my first wash of paint. On some of these drops, I try to use my brush to spread the pigment further out onto the damp paper. This, along with the separating pigments of the paint, helped to create some depth to the craters of the moon in my final painting. Okay, I'm moving on to my second wash after letting the first completely dry. At this point, I believe I'm adding some color to the side of the moon that will be the lighter side. This wash helped to lessen the starkness, is starkness a word? The starkness of the white paper, and in some ways help the viewer to understand that what they are looking at is spherical, if that makes sense. So let's talk about Moonglow for just a little bit here. Now, usually I like to form my own opinions to describe paints, but someone at the company wrote this description and I couldn't say it any better, so here's a quick excerpt about Moonglow from the Daniel Smith website. Water frees this amazing 3-pigment blend to perform miracles. Watch and wait as anthraquinone red floats, ultramarine blue settles, and viridian grays the resulting violet color. Selectively blot and lift a surface wash to expose delicate blue-greens. A description of the fascinating light and dark washes can never match a personal experience. Use Moonglow in shadows and as a silhouette pigment and enjoy its reaction to salt application in background washes. Its neutral tinting property makes it effective with almost all the Daniel Smith watercolors. Now, I don't know about you, but I thought that whoever wrote that did a bang-up job with the description, and he or she made me want to buy another tube, honestly. So for the painting, I did drop a few more drops and smooth out the lighter side in preparation for the final wash of paint. At this point, I was also just kind of playing around and seeing what worked well or looked to me like it could be train on a moon. So again, use that imagination and keep playing around until you're happy with it. So next, I'm going to move forward onto my final wash on my moon, but before I do that, I let it dry again. I also wanted to show you a close-up of the paint mixed with some water on my palette so you can get an idea of how the pigments separate out. So coming up here on this final wash, you're going to see me drop some very concentrated pigment on the places of the moon that I want to be darker. Then I end up dropping some water in those spots to create some watercolor blooms, otherwise known as cauliflowers. From what I understand, there's a good amount of science and such about why that happens, but basically the clean water pushes the pigment away from the surface of the paper and out to where the water has flowed. Then it creates a spot that has less pigment in the middle and harsh lines of pigment on the outside. So it's just about perfect for creators on the moon. Then I end up mixing up some more Jane's Gray and add a bit of depth and shadow to the darker side of my moon. Anyways, I'll let you guys go ahead and watch and enjoy as I finish up the final touches on my moon, and I'll talk to you in just a minute about the background. Okay, so here's my moon. I could have probably messed with it some more, but I tend to overwork pieces a lot, so I thought I would stop before it's too late on this one. It's still a bit damp here, so I'm going to let it dry completely before I start to work on the background washes. I will say Moonglow has definitely won my heart and probably a place on my long-term palette for a while. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do for the background as I finished up my moon, but I did want a moody blue with a flat wash behind it, or that's what I thought initially. I decided on Winsor and Newton's Indigo, which consists of PBK6, PB19, and PB15. I'm a pretty big fan of indigo, and I thought that the blues really accentuated the PB29 that the Moonglow has in it. I had initially wanted a flat wash without harsh lines for the background, but I ended up making more of an abstract night sky. If you want to stick with a flat wash, a good way to accomplish that on a piece like this is to paint the paper with water, then paint at the center of the water, then add water to the outsides of that before expanding your paint. That way everything should stay wet enough to keep the background soft and avoid harsh pigment or watermarks. I initially decided to do that. For the most part, I'm still doing that right now, and then I kept a pretty neat wash closer to the moon, but as I worked my way outward, I yearned for some brush marks or something to add to this simple painting. As we finish up here, I just want to take a second to thank you all for watching. I hope you stick around and check out some of my other videos if you have enjoyed this one. I would be super honored if you hit that subscribe button. I really love making videos for you guys, interacting with you, getting to know you, and learning with you. If you do end up following this tutorial, even if it's at some point in the distant future, I would love it if you tagged me on Instagram so I can see all of your pieces. I'll make sure to leave my tag here and in the description. Lastly, I decided to try to splatter some white gouache on the background, and I wasn't super successful. It did add a little to my painting if you look at the final product very closely, but I probably could have done without it. If you want to add some stars to your night sky though, you can use white gouache, bleed-proof white, white ink, or even some masking fluid where you'd like your stars to be, and then you need to remove the masking fluid when your paint is completely dry. Whatever you decide, make sure you place something down that is easily washable before you splatter paint everywhere. I have my very cleanable mat down right now, but I learned that lesson the hard way when I first started painting. So don't be like me, grab an old towel or something and don't splatter paint everywhere. If you don't want to get paint splatter on your moon, you can cover up a portion of your painting with a piece of printer paper before you splatter. That way you don't get it on your moon, and then you can rotate the paper around to make sure that you cover the entire background if you wish. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!